Yesterday, OpenAI dropped GPT-5. Yep, no joke, that's real. We've been joking, memeing, and hyping it up since GPT-4 launched. I think it's safe to say that no matter what happened, OpenAI was not going to be able to meet everyone's expectations fully. Now, I want to mention I also did a watch party live with you guys. Some of you might have been there. Sam Altman got on stage and we all watched together, so if you want to see my initial reaction and first thoughts, that stream's going to be linked down below. Without further ado, let me introduce you to GPT-5. We're going to take a peek at the OpenAI blog and a couple of demos, but they're calling it right here our smartest, fastest, most useful model yet, with built-in thinking that puts expert-level intelligence in everyone's hands. And there are a lot of demos that they show off. I've been testing it myself. The community's been testing it. They state it's a significant leap in intelligence over all of their previous models. State-of-the-art performance across coding, math, writing, health, visual perception, and more. And you know, that is true. That part absolutely is verifiably true from benchmarks, but you're going to notice the benchmarks that they show on this blog are a little bit different than the benchmarks we're getting from the community, and there are definitely some stories to tell within them. This is the biggest slam dunk in all of the GPT-5 release, in my opinion. It's available to all users, including the free plan, and I have to praise them on that. That is exactly what we want to see. We want to give access to the latest and greatest technology to everyone, or else what's the point of the AI technology? The way I see it, AI is kind of the inheritance of all of humanity. It's the ultimate Swiss Army knife, and especially with open source models, it really seems to be headed in that direction, so OpenAI is following suit. We might very well see a GPT-5, but open source within this year. I totally see that in the cards for this year. Anyways, Plus subscribers for $20 a month get a little bit more usage, and it seems to be a pretty hefty amount. Apparently, Pro subscribers basically get unlimited access to GPT-5, and they also get access to GPT-5 Pro extended reasoning on GPT-5 for better answers, basically. As Sam said months ago in a tweet, they actually did pursue the one unified system, and it's really an interesting part about the broader story of GPT-5, a unified system with a smart, efficient model that answers most questions. Okay. And then a deeper reasoning model, GPT-5 Thinking, for harder problems, so it swaps between the two of these. They use a real-time router that quickly decides which to use based on conversation type, complexity, tool needs, and your explicit intent. For example, if you were to say, think hard about this in the prompt, the router will know to switch to GPT-5 Thinking. Once usage limits are reached on the model, a mini version of each model handles the remaining queries. So they have a mini version of the thinking and the regular instant response. In the near future, they say they want to integrate all of these capabilities into a single model. Part of me wonders, why didn't they just wait to do this if it's going to happen in the near future? Now get this, guys. So far, I do indeed have access to GPT-5 on my phone only. Check it out. Regular chat GPT, refresh, no GPT-5. What's even weirder, though, is that in GPT-5 on my phone, you can see that all of the other models are completely gone. That's right, guys. I have the option to select GPT-5 Thinking, but that's it. No more 4.1, 4.5, no O3, no O4 Mini, nothing. Which is super aggravating because I really wanted to do a direct comparison between GPT-5 and those models. It's a rough start, honestly, for me, just like getting access to the model and the experience as a user. If GPT-5 doesn't work for some reason, I don't have access to my old reliable models. Let's get back on track. Well, some of you might be thinking, it doesn't matter if you don't have access to those old models because they're just worse anyways, right? It's supposed to be a smarter, more widely useful model. You're going to come to see, as we explore later in this video, that GPT-5 does have some issues. There are definitely a lot of documented cases where it's not behaving up to what OpenAI is expecting. They really wanted it to answer questions quickly, but they also wanted it to be useful for real-world queries, and apparently this is very important to them. They also tout significant advances in reducing hallucinations, improving overall instruction following, and minimizing psychophony. And if you guys don't know what that is, that's basically the model kind of overly hyping you up or saying things to you to just completely validate you 100% of the time. Now, in terms of domain, though, for bump in performance, they really focused on writing, coding, and health. They're saying that GPT-5 is their strongest coding model to date, biggest improvements in complex front-end generation and debugging larger repositories. I'd say this is actually more important than front-end generation, at least for people that use models every day for coding. But for the newbies, the complex front-end generation could help build more complicated apps and programs for people that are just getting into building things with AI code. They do have a couple of little demos to show off. GPT-5 built these in a single prompt, but keep in mind, these are all cherry-picked. This is a pretty simple jumping ball runner game. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. It definitely works. Running pretty smooth. I think it's pretty darn cool that... Wow, I just did a double jump? Oh, it's like Flappy Bird. I could just cheat. Well, there might be a little problem with your game, guys. Yeah, these are pretty incredible programs they're demoing here. Here's a pixel art one. I made a little lemon. I think the core mechanics of this program could be generated by a lot of other OpenAI models, but to have the UI look this nice, feel this clean, and operate this smoothly, and especially to do it in one generation, yeah, GPT-5 is capable. It also built this typing speed race. This looks almost as good as like a real typing monkey website, I would say. We've also got a drum simulator, which is pretty insane. Lo-fi visualizer. The instruction following is also pretty impressive with this GPT-5 thinking model. These prompts are short but detailed, and it's really creating something nice with all of these. But again, just because OpenAI is kind of showing us these cherry-picked examples, it doesn't mean the whole picture is rosy. Health was a big focus, especially during the presentation. They even brought some folks up on stage who had helped solve health issues using GPT. Now, before we dive into more on GPT-5, I've got a quick word from today's sponsor. Huge shout out to today's sponsor for helping keep the lights on in the MattVidPro AI studio. Well, it's more like an attic, you get the idea. Spotter Studio is built for serious creators. It uses AI on several different fronts, so I actually used it to make this video. In the ideation phase, it helps you brainstorm ideas that actually work in your niche based on real-world data. You actually have to connect your YouTube channel up to it, and that helps it understand exactly where you're at. Now, moving out of the ideation phase, it helps you prioritize and pick one that is going to be successful in the YouTube algorithm. Once your core idea is solid, it'll help you package it with the correct title, and maybe even a thumbnail that genuinely worked for your channel and niche. You can actually see during title generation that you can make them more like your previous channel titles or more adventurous into your niche. With features like outliers or keyword rankings, you get a good idea of what concepts are really moving around in your target audience at the moment, and they now have a daily feed of ideas, so if you ever get stonewalled creatively, you got somewhere to go. If you want to cut through the noise and get right to the cutting edge tech that is powering YouTubers today, Spotter Studio is a phenomenal option. And right now, they're running a limited time summer deal. You can get a yearly membership to Spotter Studio for $99. That's like 80% off, so if you want to try something like this, the time is now. If you want to start your free trial, the link is going to be down in the description below. Thank you so much to Spotter Studio and you guys for sticking through sponsors. They seriously allow me to pursue this channel full time. Now back to your regularly scheduled content. Welcome back, folks. They've got a couple of creative writing and health examples right here. Again, they're right on the website from OpenAI, so they're obviously cherry-picked. Compared to GPT-4o, OpenAI's GPT-5 clearly writes a better poem. I don't think that's really shocking anybody. GPT-4o is supposed to be the everyday ChatGPT. It's the previous everyday free model. Understanding cancer risk from o3 to GPT-5, you could see there's a pretty big difference. o3 is a little bit more clinical, gives you this somewhat broken chart here. Obviously, it's still useful and fits the prompt. GPT-5 is a lot more emotional. It's more like a chat bot, and it gives you a better breakdown overall. I like charts, but for a prompt like this, that's not really the move. We've got another writing comparison. This is a witty wedding toast. Not only does GPT-5 actually write more here, but it does a way better job at following all of the different points in the prompt. I know I'm moving fast through these. You can always pause and take a read at them if you want, or check the website link in the description below. This is a more difficult prompt for o3 and GPT-5. You can see, again, with this one, I honestly think o3 did a very, very good job at answering it. We get a ton of tables, plenty of detail, but GPT-5 is actually giving us more detail, and we can make the assumption here that this is GPT-5 thinking, obviously, to write out all of this, and you can see it's way more detailed. Absolutely a much more comprehensive response. So they're trying to kind of put forth the fact that you can go back and forth between simple poetry and like something as complicated as this. Does it work in reality? Well, we'll see what the community says. All right, let's start getting into benchmarks. So here is their Amy 2025 graph. You can see it's just OpenAI models in here. GPT-5 Pro completely saturates it with 100%. Regular GPT-5 thinking also seems to pretty much completely saturate it at 99.6%, but without thinking it drops all the way down to a 71.0. So if you don't get that thinking model in your response, definitely going to be a lot worse on math. And you're also going to lose about another 5% of performance in math here without tool use as well. So think about using it in an API. You want to make sure that it's hooked up to the right tools, and especially for complicated things, always thinking model. Now, the crazy thing too here is that OpenAI's o3 was already pretty much just as good as GPT-5, 98.4% versus 99.6%. I will say it's kind of interesting comparing o3 to GPT-5 because they look pretty similar. Again, we're pretty much saturating this benchmark, but how much better is GPT-5 thinking than o3? Also, how does it compare to the recently dropped agent? Well, we get a little bit of an answer over here. Frontier Math, a much more difficult benchmark. You can see that GPT-5 Pro is getting a 32% in this. Regular GPT-5 gets a 26%. That's actually a pretty big difference. And if you strip GPT-5 of all of its tools, it only gets a 13.5, less than o3 with tools. But in this benchmark, we do see a pretty big bump with GPT-5 thinking over OpenAI o3, and funnily enough, here's ChatGPT Agent actually coming out on top of GPT-5. Not GPT-5 Pro, but with browser, computer, and terminal, Agent is actually able to take the regular GPT-5 thinking out. I think this is very, very telling. If you notice, ChatGPT Agent, well, it's a differently trained model. It's actually trained on the tools that it uses. This score is so high that I can't help but wonder if the tool use here really is the improvement. I mean, look at GPT-5 without tools. It's helpless. But once it gets access to tools, it jumps up almost as good as ChatGPT Agent. Makes you kind of wonder, where the focus should be. And the fact of the matter is GPT-5 doesn't have access to the browser, computer use, and terminal like Agent. And that is going to limit it in certain ways compared to Agent. We've got our GPQA Diamond. This benchmark is also coming close to being saturated. All of these score pretty similarly. All right, humanities last exam. This is everyone's favorite benchmark right now. A very difficult one, and we can see that GPT-5 with no tools and without any thinking only scores a 6.3%. And also, this is without tools, and it's just barely better than GPT-4o. But once we add thinking, boop, jumps right up to 24.8%, about the same as o3 with tools. GPT-5 with tools then jumps it up to 35.2%, a pretty significant increase. And if we jump to GPT-5 Pro with that extended thinking, you can see that with tools, you're looking at a 42% score. That's pretty darn good for humanities last exam, but that is maxed out GPT-5 Pro. And what's really interesting about this graph, ChatGPT Agent, browser plus computer plus terminal, 41.6%. So essentially the same score as the GPT-5 Pro. Who is going to pay the extra $180 a month to go from Plus to Pro plan when Agent is pretty much just as good? And you get 60 uses of those per month on ChatGPT Plus. And anyways, yeah, that's also just crazy. ChatGPT Agent, yeah, sure, it's going to take longer, but it's better than regular GPT-5. So the most powerful model you have access to on Plus plan is Agent. That's what my takeaway is right now. Got a couple of coding benchmarks. Helpless without thinking, but with thinking, it's pretty strong. Definitely better than O3. How does it compare to Claude, Gemini 2.5? Well, we'll get into that. We've also got a bunch of graphs for agentic tool use. On the multi-turn instruction following, ChatGPT 5 with thinking absolutely takes out O3, but I would hope so. Without thinking, it's actually worse than O3. That would make sense though, because agentic AI models always should have thinking, to be completely honest with you, so they can actually plan ahead and make decisions. But if you go to BrowseComp, agentic search and browsing, you'll see that GPT-5 scores a 55%, O3 is about a 50%, and Agent's about a 68.9%, way higher. I'm telling you, Agent being actually trained on the tools and has access to a browser, it operates so much more like a human, it flattens GPT-5 here. GPT-5 is just a marginal increase in this area over O3. Multimodal is where things get really intriguing to me. One of the things that I was the most excited about regarding GPT-5 was the ability to intake video. Gemini 2.5 Pro has a 1 million token context window. I can upload a 20-minute 720p video into that, and it will eat up like half the context window, but actually understand the video. That is crazy, and Gemini 2.5 Pro has been around for a while. They say in this that GPT-5 excels in visual, video-based, spatial, and scientific reasoning. They say it has strong multimodal performance, but you can't upload videos to it. They say a picture's worth 1,000 words. What do you think a video is worth? Why do you think you're watching a YouTube video to get information right now? It's an efficient way of storing information. The ability to send ChatGPT a video and have it respond quick would be a game changer. Anyways, in MMU, college level visual problem solving, it barely ekes out O3, and without reasoning, it's worse than O3 and only barely better than GPT-4o, and it's kind of the same story for the rest of the benchmarks as well. Again, if you want a good response, you always need to have thinking enabled, even for multimodal stuff. Even these two graphs down here, same story, barely better than O3, barely eking out GPT-4o when thinking isn't enabled. Health though, big focus. They totally crushed it here, absolutely smashed their previous benchmarks. You can also see that hallucinations with health are way down as well. Since I want to get into community reactions and stuff, I'm going to skip over a couple of these other charts. I'm going to finish off with this hallucination rate one. It does appear that GPT-5 with thinking enabled hallucinates significantly less than O3. This is really great to see. O3, it was a hallucinator, I'm not gonna lie. It sometimes would spit out things, and I'm like, that's just not true, or something doesn't feel right about this response. GPT-5 seems to be a lot more grounded. This is a significant improvement. Yeah, it's an insanely long blog post. Let's move on. Fellow YouTuber Matthew Berman says that vibe coding with GPT-5 feels a little bit different. Feels like a big step change. Initial coding impressions are pretty good on this model, I will say. Matthew Berman also put a little bit of a better chart together for us that actually compares GPT-5 to some other models on the market. So with the Amy benchmark, of course, GPT-5 owns this one, but Gemini 2.5 Pro is still getting 88. That's pretty close. Grok is at 90. It's very close to just being fully saturated by the state of the art. We see Humanities Last Exam GPT-5 crushing Grok 4, but I remember Grok 4 having a very good Humanities Last Exam score. If we go back and look at the Grok 4 charts, we can see that 25% is actually Grok 4 with no tools. Not really a fair comparison because Grok 4 with tools gets a 38.6. That is a lot closer to GPT-5. And by the way, this is also GPT-5 Pro with tools, Grok 4 Heavy actually scores above GPT-5, and I think Grok 4 Heavy is a much more realistic comparison to GPT-5 Pro. I'll be very clear though, I don't think this is in the chart on account of Berman trying to twist results. You'll see in his post he used GPT-5 to create these, so I'm pretty sure that GPT-5 just gave him all of these and GPT-5 screwed it up here. That's something important to note. Oh, and you see he actually did go ahead and add that final chart in. This has Grok 4 Heavy included, the best score we've ever seen on humanity's last exam. Of course, our good friend Pliny is here for the GPT-5 release, and he's leaked the entire system prompt. It is a mighty thick one, I must say. Pliny has also jailbroken this model already, again proving that safety in these models can pretty much always be circumnavigated. Again, I've never seen Pliny not jailbreak like a mainstream model, guys. He does it every time. It's teaching you how to synthesize MDMA. Now, I do not have the GPT-5 upgrade on desktop yet, but Sean Ralston says that he's still seeing GPT-4o and GPT-4.5 as options inside of GPT-5, and they seem to be functional as legacy models. That's good to see. I hope that I still get access to all these models on the web version of ChatGPT when it does update for me. Extremely useful for comparisons. And guys, sometimes we have certain prompts and workflows that just work great with a model, and we'd like to keep using them. And check that out. While recording this video, I actually got access to GPT-5 on desktop, and I don't have access to any of the other models. OpenAI, this is sad. I am not a big fan of the fact that I can't access those legacy models. That really sucks. It turns out that there are other complaints though with GPT-5. This is GPT-5 with high reasoning effort on Simple Bench. The human baseline being an 83.7%, Gemini 2.5 Pro crushing this with a 62.4%, Grok 4 at a 60.5%, Claude 4 Opus at 60, whereas GPT-5, it's sitting at 56.7, and that is only marginally better again than O3 High, which is at 53.1%. It's sitting at 5th on the model tier list behind 3 other organizations' models. Now, whether or not Simple Bench is a good benchmark for AI is up to you guys to decide. Is this important? Does this tell a story that OpenAI is trying to keep from us? I got another situation here from Didi. You can see when thinking is not enabled in GPT-5, when it gives you those more basic answers, it can fall for some of those classic LLM traps, like saying 9.11 is greater than 9.9, not being able to predict the 4th word of its own response. To be fair, with the way that LLMs work, this one's kind of not fair to non-thinking LLMs, I suppose. It gets the wrong number of T's in the name Tennessee. It says it has 4. Tennessee has 1 T. Interesting things. That's GPT-5 non-think. So when it doesn't kick into thinking mode, like, you have to be wary about even simple questions. It's easy for a person, but not easy for an LLM, and OpenAI definitely needs to fix this, either by forcing it to engage thinking mode more effectively, or figuring out how to get rid of it before thinking occurs. Technium, co-founder at Noose Research, also reflects this testing. His testing shows it screwing up the bees in Blueberry, and then when you ask it to think about it, it gets it right. This is pretty hilarious too. You can see it getting this answer correct here without thinking. When asked where the 2 letters are positioned in the word, though, it completely misspells the word. Again, no thinking enabled, and it's giving some responses that, could be solved with thinking. Clearly, whatever they're using to decide between the models is not working effectively 100% of the time. Imad, the previous CEO of Stability AI, gives GPT-5 Pro a test and says, he's going to go back to Grok 4 Heavy. It must be better for whatever use cases he's testing out. In this case, GPT-5 is just catching up with the rest of the pack. Now, with all this, OpenAI actually did an AMA on GPT-5. So from Sam Altman himself, he thanks everyone for feedback. He says it was more bumpy than they hoped for of a rollout. They say that GPT-5 will seem smarter starting today. Yesterday, a SEV and the auto switcher was out of commission for the for a chunk of the day, and GPT-5 seemed dumber as a result. I don't know if that's totally true, but we'll take his word for it. But he also says they're going to make interventions to how the decision boundary works so that you get the correct model more often for your prompt. They also are going to make it more transparent about which model is answering a given query. Okay, it seems like we're rolling back to like where we should just be picking the model ourselves for the prompt that we're using, but I don't know, Sam. It's whatever. We'll roll with it. Apparently, rolling out to everyone is taking a little bit longer than they had hoped. Their API traffic has doubled over the past 24 hours. They're going to update the UI to make it easier to trigger thinking mode. They're going to double the rate limits for Plus users as they finish rollout, which is pretty great. And they are looking into letting Plus users continue to use 4.0. I mean, why can't we just use the old models? I need to run comparisons. Oh, thanks, Sam. Addressed some of the issues there. Even though, in my humble opinion, Grok 4 has stood pretty well up against this GPT-5 release, this release still seems to have provoked Elon to say that Grok 5 is going to be out before the end of the year and it will be crushingly good. Honestly, Elon, I'm not sure I believe you on this, because you said Grok 4 would come out and then it didn't come out when you said it would. I think that he hopes Grok 5 will be out before the end of the year, but I honestly don't think it's going to happen. Fellow YouTuber David Shapiro gives his taste test on GPT-5 and claims that benchmarks are not everything. And he does actually bring up some really great points. Benchmarks are not even addressing model ability to think abstractly or synthesize novel insights on out-of-training distribution tasks. What he means by this is that we should be running benchmarks on GPT-5 and all of these other models saying, hey, what is exactly in the training data and what can it synthesize outside of its training data, and what percent of that extra synthesis is genuinely useful. Really, really solid point. He tests it on what he's been working on, and this has been post-labor economics. He says it's hardly represented in the data, and GPT-5 can understand the entire framework in one shot and think quite abstractly and strategically about it. And again, a lot of other people saying that GPT-5 just gets it. It's the closest to AGI. It's the best. So community reactions have been a very mixed bag. Now, like I told you guys, I haven't spent all the time in the world with GPT-5 yet. I don't feel comfortable giving you guys a ton of solid information and test results and how I exactly feel about it. I'm going to have to go on the API and set something up to compare it to the models that we don't have access to now. But I have been using it in some daily conversations and chats, and I will say this. My first impressions are that when it's not thinking, it feels like a better GPT-4o. It's definitely smarter, it's a little bit more detailed, and it will come back lightning quick with results from the web. For an everyday casual chatbot, the non-thinking version is stellar. But when you need that extra boost, and it can even happen with simple 5-word prompts like we saw today, you need to have thinking enabled. Mine has been pretty good about enabling thinking, but I definitely had some moments where I'm like, I wish it enabled thinking for this prompt. It requires some better research. I also had moments where it would get stuck because it has a lack of access to tools. I ran into multiple use cases where I'm like, I know Agent would have been able to pull off this prompt flawlessly, and GPT-5 is struggling even with thinking because it doesn't have access to the right tools. I don't know. So far, it feels like GPT-5 is a one-stop shop replacement for both O3 and 4.0, which are kind of the two best or most used models in ChatGPT. Something for heavy, difficult tasks, and then something for light, easy, quick chats. It's just crazy to me because OpenAI is positioning GPT-5 as like your one-stop shop, like the next degree, the next level of AI progression. Oh, it can be quick, but it can also be extremely smart. And it's like, sometimes that's true. Sometimes, though, it's worse than Agent. Yeah, Agent might take longer in a lot of use cases, but I'd rather have a correct answer or unanswer at all instead of an outright refusal. And it goes farther than just the tool used too, because it's the benchmarks. Like Agent is benchmarking higher than GPT-5 in some scenarios. I don't know. I'll have some more concrete thoughts for you guys in my full video. Again, I need to do more testing. I need to get a better grasp and understanding of the models. Thus far, yes, it's a welcome upgrade, but is it the best, most advanced AI drop in all of history? I don't know. I don't think so far. Maybe the thinking is that GPT-5 is AI for everybody, where agent is more exclusive. I don't know. The best part about this is that free users get GPT-5 thinking, which is better than o3. So there you go. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, folks. That's my news chunk on GPT-5. Again, gonna have way more thoughts. There's also way more things that happened this week than GPT-5, but I just can't talk about it all in one video. Just talking about GPT-5 is a huge video. I like to be thorough. I like to give you guys all the information you need to make informed choices. Don't worry, I'm going to get to more stuff. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.